Hello, one and all. This is the all-new Stuart Reid Show. My name is my name is Stuart Reid, and my aim is to provide you with much-needed support. By you, I mean all those unsigned artists, all those bands, all those people with a dream that they're following, whether it be making jewellery, photography, whether it be having their own hamburger van that goes around and makes hamburgers for children, or not just children, for people. I'm here to help you with the help of this show, my website, my social media. I'm going to provide all of you with what is hopefully going to be a kick-ass show. A little background on me. My name is Stuart Reid, as we've established, and I was in a band. Well, I've been in a couple of bands, local to Plymouth. Anyone from Plymouth during the early 2000s will maybe you've heard of me. Not me, the band. We were in let's start again, shall we? I was in a band called Slot, which was an acronym for Serious Lack of Talent. That said, after a few months of trying to establish ourselves, we started to get quite good, and we had a little bit of a following in a couple of the venues that we used to play regularly, one of them being the Phoenix. So I know what it's like to be an artist or in a band and not have that support, that network, because you always get those bands that seem to just be in the right place at the right time, and unfortunately for people down in the southwest of England, from anything below Bristol, I'd say it's difficult for us to get recognised. They all think we're country bumpkins, and haven't, because we haven't got the main football team, big cities or anything like that. We struggle to establish ourselves and haven't got the talent. I'm here to set the record straight. We do have talent. We have bags of it. I mean, I'm in the background. I haven't got any music to play on this show as of yet. In the background here, I am going through the artists on Spotify that are signed to an independent label called Black Sail Records, established by one of my good friends, Jim Pope, sorry. Yeah, he's had so many names. It's Jim Dyke, Jim Russell, Jim Pope, but Pope is his married name. And what he does for this small segment of the globe to try and help artists is incredible. So Black Sail Records, this is your moment. It's a massive shout out, and I cannot express how vital your organisation is to the local music community. You add that to another magazine that's run by a friend of mine who was a former band person back in the day. That Hit the Floor magazine. They started off small, but they're getting quite the following now, and they do interviews with some very big artists now. And in all honesty, this show is about getting you noticed. I'm not guaranteeing you're going to get signed. I'm not guaranteeing you're going to end up touring the world or anything like that. But as a former local artist, I know the value of any recognition, whether it be in a local newspaper, in a national magazine, on a television show, or indeed being played on the radio or podcast. It means a lot to the individuals to know that their dreams, their music is something that's being taken seriously. I've been there. I've sat through so many gigs of bands that were good in their own right, but didn't have the pizzazz, I suppose, that our band did. because we offered a lot of entertainment with our show. And they were getting recognised, signed to independent labels like Det Cheese and Household Name Records, Moonscar. So, I know that these artists, these record labels are out there, but Black Sail Records is where we begin. I love this song. It's The Rats by Arizona Law. Unfortunately, Arizona Law are no more. That was actually Jim's band, but for his dedication to his record label, he's decided he's going to concentrate on that. So he's no longer in the band. The other members have gone on and formed another band called Everybody's Dead Dave. And early reports suggest that it's going to be something special, but I mean, you can hear the quality of the recordings. And if you go to my Spotify or search for me on Spotify, Stuart Reed, there's a couple of playlists I created. One's called Black Sail Records Artists, and on there are a few of the bands that have been signed to Black Sail Records independently, just for a little promotion and development, but the effort that goes into creating these albums, these records, is unbelievable. You look at the artwork, for example. I mean, I'm looking at it now. There's one for their EP called the Abduction, and listen to Rats, and it's amazing to think that someone out there who is a friend of theirs, is an artist, has created this CD cover or this record cover for them. And like I said, there's so much talent down here, and it's not just about music, it's about artists, people trying to establish themselves. I have some good friends who are into photography. That is a guy called Jim Merry. I went to school with a guy, and he's been working on other things most of his adult life, and he's decided to go for it with his photography, and he's doing very well. He's taken some show photos of I think it's Volkswagen cars for one of the local merchants down here. Another friend of mine, Abby Coulson, she's always been into her creative side. She's a great designer. She makes some wonderful clothes. Her jewellery is incredible. And she's also into photography. And because she's got that eye, she's able to capture pictures that sometimes people don't consider taking. So that's Abby Coulson and Jim Merry, two very, very good local to Plymouth photographers. Fantastic. We also have some artists selling their wares. I bought a piece recently from a friend of mine who, again, I went to school with, and it's a lovely little family not a family portrait, but a nice. I can't really describe it, but it's so lovely. It's so lovely, and I think she sold it to me for £10, and I was like, I had like £20 ready to give to her, and she said, no, it's £10, it's fine. And I was like, okay, but it's lovely, and my wife's face when she opened it was eternally grateful, because there was this special connection that someone had created this for us, and it was really, really appreciated. And this is the problem with art. This is the problem artists have. They've got this talent, but they've got nowhere to go with it. Me, I like to draw. I can draw a little bit. I'm quite good at the old cartoons and stuff like that. I tried to write and illustrate my own children's books, trying to write my own novels at the same time. It's just interests I have. And unfortunately, because I work full time and I have a family, 2 gorgeous girls and a beautiful wife, I find that when you've come home from a day at work, or you've got other things going on, you just don't have the time to sit down and get it done. But Sam Sim, who is a friend of mine from school, as I said, she does that. She's a single mum raising 2 kids of her own, working, and she's still creating all these wonderful art projects. And search for her on Instagram, because you go through her back catalogue of work. It's amazing, really, really good. So that's Sam Sim. Look for her on Instagram. She hasn't got a professional, a page for her drawings specifically. She's called Sam Sim Art, or Art by Sam Sim. I can't remember. I do apologise, Sam. But yeah, get in touch and have a look at her work. Another one is Amanda Ritson. Amanda is so talented, and she's another cartoonist like myself, and she does a lot of things, and she has a page on there on Facebook, and she will do things for you specifically. And again, just take a look at it. So we've got Abby Coulson, photographer, artist, designer, jewellery maker, amazing. Jim Merry, he's also a photographer, some amazing photos, and getting a good name for himself in the Southwest especially. We've got Sam Sim, artist, fantastic, and Amanda Ritson, another artist. There's just, that's just people I know of. That's a handful of people I've just plucked out and decided to advertise. I want everyone to have their say. Someone, if you've got a talent and you want to let the world know what it is, just tell me and I can help. I want to give a shout out to Jim for pursuing his dream. I mean, this guy works full time, but he's also got a second full time job, which I don't think he gets paid for. Or if he does, it's a pittance, and it just covers the costs of running the label. But he does it for the love of the music and the Southwest scene, which doesn't get picked up. I mean, you got, thanks to places like, you used to have the Phoenix and the White Rabbit, which were prominent in the underground punk and ska and metal scene. Unfortunately, the Phoenix is still there, but it's not. It's just got new owners. I say new; they took over in 2004, 2005, I think. So, but the White Rabbit unfortunately had to close because they're building a big cinema complex there. So now Dan, who used to run the White Rabbit, and he used to get some big names down. I mean, he had the Ataris down, he had the Misfits, some really big names. He's helping run the Junction. I'm not sure if he's the owner or anything, but he's definitely in around there, and he's in a couple of bands. He's in Quiet Man, which are hardcore. They are so hardcore, and I believe he's just joined Crazy Arm, who are a quite well-established band from the Southwest. They're made up of members of the Once Over Twice and No Comply, if you were familiar with that scene from, again, the early 2000s. Darren Johns, who was lead singer for the Once Over Twice, has taken lead singing and guitar on Crazy Arm, and they're so versatile. So versatile. And anyway, getting back to Dan and the Junction, great little venue for anyone in Plymouth who wants to play, get their bands gigs, and they get some big. I mean, they've got the Ataris coming down in February. This is amazing stuff. I mean, I love the Ataris, and they're playing the record. I'm having problems identifying which record it is at the moment, but yeah, they're coming down, and it's a shame that you've got the Junction, but it is a small venue. You've also got the Underground, which is across the road, which plays local bands. Again, it's another small venue, but put the two together and you've got quite the scene there. Again, going back to Black Sail Records and Jim Pope, he put together his annual Get Rad festival all by himself, and the money he made went towards the bands that played. And you had Moriarty, who are again from Plymouth, who's they're creating quite a name for themselves as well. It's a two-piece. a guitarist and a drummer who often like get together with other acts, and they do wonderful things. And they headline this this festival, this Get Rad festival. And I was fortunate enough to go and help out this year. I reviewed some bands. I had an interview for one of my previous projects. I interviewed Jim, and we talked about, it was like two friends talking about music, and it was great. So, this guy's passion for it, and Dan's passion for the scene, for music. I mean, if you're lucky enough to be able to go for your dreams, just do it. I mean, for me, I chose to go down, get an apprenticeship, have a job, and do it as a little bit of fun in the background. So, between, I think it was 2002 and 2006, I can't really remember. I was drunk the entire time, I think. I played in slot, and I remember getting panned the first time we played anywhere. We played an open mic night down the Cooperage on the Barbican, which isn't there anymore. And we didn't really have that much in ways of songs, especially when we called ourselves a punk band, and we came out and we played a couple of like 4-chord punk songs that we had learned, and we had this nice little number that was a little bit more upbeat. And this one guy came up to us who introduced us as The Slot. Not Slot, The Slot. I always remember that. He was one of these slimy people. He had his greasy hair tied back in a ponytail, glasses, and he wore chinos. And for the even to this day, he's referred to as Chino Dude. But we came off that stage and we felt deflated. This is our first ever gig, and we thought we did well, but obviously, being our first gig, open mic night, and the best thing about it was we'd only been playing for a matter of months. All of us, picked up instruments and learnt together. I mean, you had Tinhead, Andy on the drums, who was being taught by another friend of mine, John. And John went off to Spain to work, and he would have been the first choice drummer if he hadn't have gone there. And Andy just came on leaps and bounds, and we all sort of developed our sound around him. Chris on bass, those two just drove the songs. I played rhythm guitar, and at that time it was just the three of us, but we didn't have a singer. None of us had the well, Andy, the drummer, Tinhead I should say, he had the confidence to sing, but he was drumming and still new to drumming, so he couldn't do the two things at once. I was very much the same with guitar, and Chris was the same with bass. And I remember we were practicing one day, and Andy's brother Ross came down. He was just watching to begin with, and then Andy and Chris went out for a smoke. I don't smoke, but they went out to have a cigarette. So me and Ross were there, and I was just playing Green Day, Basket Case. And Ross started singing in the microphone, and it's one of those moments where you just thought, yeah, this is it. He's like the missing link. This is amazing. So I got the other two to come back in, and we all started playing together. And Ross was singing, and that was the sort of start of it. Unfortunately, being the only guitarist, and I wasn't very good. I'm still not great, to be honest. I do have a penchant for the 4-chord punk riffs or anything like that, and I tend to play the old Green Day Time of Your Life and turn that into just mix the chords around a little bit. But I was the only guitarist, and I don't believe that if it was just me, we wouldn't have got anywhere near as popular as we did. So Ross happened to know another guy who was self-taught at home, played guitar, and everyone used to rave about him. And he turned up one day and he had this beautiful Gibson Les Paul guitar. It was his baby's. I think he still got it in his pride and joy. It was amazing. And he pulled it out, and the guitar, and he started playing along to our songs. We were going through, I think we had a catalogue of about 4 or 5 songs at that point. And I always remember he came in and just started tinkering over the top, little fiddly bits to my rough and ready 4-chord punk riffs and Chris's rumbling bass lines, and Tinhead's, at that time it was mostly snare, but it was amazing. It just brought the sound together, and we had this one song called Marmalade, which was I love this song, sorry. Yeah, I made up this song, Marmalade. I made up the riff for Marmalade. And it was just a very easy 4-chord track. But the parts that I played were then added to by Adrian, who came in, and he turned it into this ska punk track. I mean, he was heavily into Less Than Jake and Real Big Fish at the time. And he just came in and did that. It changed the whole concept of the song. And I would say that was our first popular song. I mean, the lyrics were funny, very clever. And as soon as he put that little ska tinge to it, it became something special. So, that was our lineup. You had Tinhead on drums, Chris on bass, me on rhythm guitar, Adrian came in and did lead guitar, and Ross on vocals. And I'm not gonna lie, it was an amazing experience. I mean, the 2, 3, whatever years, how many years we were together, like I said, we weren't very sober for a lot of it, were great. And we built up a little bit of a following. We supported some great bands. We supported Whitmore at the height of their fame, thanks to a channel that came out called P-Rock. And that night was just electric. We were there, and it was at the Phoenix on Union Street. If anyone knows Plymouth, it was Phoenix on Union Street, and we were just sat there watching as all these people came in, and you could not move. And we came on stage and we performed probably the best we've ever played, and we got a lot of attention after that, which was great. And we were always called back regularly to support some of the bigger bands that came down. We played with this one band called the Angry Amputees. And if anyone's familiar with the old Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, they had a song on the Pro Skater 2, I believe, called She Said. And they were amazing. And it was it opened my eyes a little bit to how people who face adversity still are able to follow their dreams. Because the bassist, he was missing limbs. He had no arm on one hand, and he was playing bass, and it was amazing. So this has enlightened me, this whole journey. And thinking back on it, we made a lot of friends, and we met a lot of people. I mean, we got to know the owners of the Phoenix very well, and they even held a birthday party for me, giving me... I remember I turned up for this surprise birthday party, which was a week after my birthday. And the guys from Slot had created a song for me, specifically for that event, called Stu, It's Not Your Birthday, It's Your Filthy Day of Lies. Where my friend Phil, who was really into Metallica and Opeth and Tool and bands of that genre, he came in and played my guitar in a punk band for a little while, which was amazing. But the owners of the Phoenix actually gave me a huge 1 litre bottle of Jack Daniels, but told me not to drink it in the pub. So I still had to buy the drinks while I was there. But it's memories like that are amazing. And you got people for years after, even after we split up and gone our separate ways, I got fatter and bolder. People still recognise me as Stuart from Slot, the fat one. And just that recognition was fantastic. So this is what I'm talking about. This whole show is based around you. It's based around everything you want to achieve. I mean, I'm just going on about some of the experience I've had. I know there's bands out there. I mean, there was a band from Plymouth called No Comply, who were signed to Deck Cheese Records, I believe. And they started making a good name for themselves, and they were like a post-hardcore heavy ska punk band. And the nicest people possible. All of them were so nice. I mean, they had Oz, who played trombone, I think. I can't remember. Kelly on vocals, Simon on drums, John on guitar, and Nick on bass. Unfortunately, I can't remember the others, but they were just the most noblest of people. And I remember they went on tour with Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, which consist of people from the Foo Fighters, NoFX, other bands that I can't remember at the moment, but I just thought it was amazing. And then they played Reading Festival, and were watched by Green Day and stuff like that. So, these people were able to go off and follow their dreams and pursue what they wanted, and it was amazing. So it just goes to show that these things can happen. These people you see on telly, and they're all polished and pristine, but they started somewhere. In many cases, they started in little studios. I mean, you've got where we used to practice, and it's still running now. It's been running for years. It's PMC, Plymouth Music Collective, and they hire out their rooms with full PAs, and you can hire amps and other equipment and get together and just jam in there. We used to do a Wednesday night, I think, which was about 4 hours, and then we would have Sundays, which was a 6-hour session. And for a bunch of non-starters who really didn't have any aspirations at that point, 6 hours was a lot of time to dedicate to that sort of thing. So we, 10 hours a week, we were practicing and writing more and more songs. And at that time, I lived with Chris, the bassist, and he had his own house. And his wife at the time let us stay there and practice and write songs. And it didn't stop there. I mean, we would like practice all day in the house. Me and Chris would come up with a lot of the songs, the melodies and the music, and then we would leave it to Ross, who had this ingenious way of writing songs. He's very, very good and articulate in finding humour in things. And I mean, one of my favourite lyrics he ever wrote was pretty offensive. I think it's from our song Flowers and Candy on a Shiny Day. And the lyric was, I'm trying to remember it properly, I know that I'll forgive you soon, but for now here's my ass, would you like a spoon? Every time I hear it I smile. It's amazing. But we used to sit there, we just sitting there just writing songs. I had my acoustic, and sometimes I'd plug in my electric just to get the effect of how the song would sound. In that way we would come up with a concept for the song, get some lyrics down, and then next time we went to practice on the Wednesday or the Saturday or Sunday, we would write it. But then we had the gigs on the Friday and the Saturday night. I mean, we were putting a lot of time, effort, and money into it. I mean, and the more we played, the better equipment we were buying, and it's probably the same for all of you out there. I mean, you start off with all this like starter packs. I had this Fender Squier starter pack that my dad bought me, which was amazing. It was a black and white like Fender style guitar, and it was amazing, really was. And then that's what I was playing. And then because I was punk, I was punk rock at the time. A black and white guitar looked like something Cliff Richard would play. I had to stick stickers all over it, but it wasn't just like band stickers. I had like My Little Pony stickers on there, Care Bears. That was just how I made my way in the world. But then that became not enough, and I mean I was using one of my mate John, who was the drummer who went to Spain. I was using his bass amp to play my guitar with, and it was things like that. And then we started buying the bigger, better amps. I moved to a Line 6 Spider amp, and I had probably one of my, it is my dream guitar still. It was the Tom DeLonge Fender Stratocaster in gold, bright yellow colour, and I loved it. It had a single humbucker, and all it had to control the pitch and the tone, it just had a volume controller. It was just perfect. Lovely guitar. So we started getting better equipment, making ourselves more known, and before we knew it, we had to get a van because our equipment was so big. I had a decent, Tinhead had like 2 drum kits, and we all had these 4x12 cabs and amps and heads, and our guitars were more expensive, and we almost looked the part. We played a Battle of the Bands once over in Tor Point, and it was obviously set up by a school or something like that. We had no idea. We were just invited to attend. So we'd gone over there and we're playing this Battle of the Bands, and everything was you could tell they were all starting out, all these bands, and we had been established for about a year, I'd say. So we're getting there, and we were playing it, and no one seemed interested until we started playing, and it was amazing to see the change in like people's perceptions, and they were dancing along and singing along with the lyrics. We had a song called Punk Rock Pirates, and part of the song was everyone had to shout "Arr!" and it was amazing. And these people were shouting "Arr!" back, and it was a great experience. But there was obviously this one band that they all knew, that they all voted for, but everyone there was saying, "Oh, you guys should have won." And it was like that sort of recognition. It means a lot to a person who's that creative. I mean, I've been creative my entire life, but I've never explored those avenues. I mean, I've always been able to draw to a certain degree. I mean, one of my dreams as a child was always to be a cartoonist. I didn't know. I used to read comics, and I mean like proper comics, like the Beano and the Dandy and that sort of thing. I never really ventured into the Marvel and DC world until I got older. Much older, to be honest. But I used to have this character called Prattman, and I used to do a little like four square comic and put it as part of the school paper that we produced, and it was always good fun. So that I wanted to take that further, but it never seemed, for me, for some reason I never thought that these things were actually achievable. So I chose a career. Well, I wanted to join the Marines first, but that never happened because I'm asthmatic. And so after that, I sort of like dabbled with the idea of going to college and following another dream of mine, which is what I'm doing now, in becoming a radio presenter or producer. But because I've been out of work for a while, and I needed to get myself a career of some sort, I was guided by my parents into an apprenticeship. So I've got a qualification in the form of a painter and decorator, or a mechanical painter, or painter and glazer, or all these other things. And it's the job I do is, I mean, I'm not a painter anymore. I've actually been promoted quite a few times, and I'm doing all right. But the career itself is something I never chose for me. It was always a toss-up between the two growing up. I either wanted to be an illustrator, or writing comic strips or something like that, or be a radio presenter. So it was a bitter pill to swallow when I couldn't follow those dreams. So being in a band was a way to be creative, and not to blow my own trumpet, but I got pretty good at coming up with melodies, and majority of the songs were revolved around that. Obviously, they were tinkered with when we had Adrian and Chris and Tinhead, and it got to a point where we were writing really good music. But unfortunately, the influences changed. There was a lot more hardcore punk coming into it, and that just wasn't me. I'm still all ska punk, pop punk. Blink-182, my favourite band of all time. I love the Vandals, that comedic, but still a point to prove punk rock. So after a while, the music, as we started getting darker and darker and heavier, I sort of lost love with that and left. I reckon if we had continued, we would have done quite well. But the band wanted to go in a different direction, and I was more than happy for them to do that. So I left, and waiting in the wings was my friend Phil, who's always been into that heavier music. He was more Metallica, Opeth. I mean, he had the Slipknot albums. He introduced me to Slipknot and Korn and Opeth. Opeth plays some amazing things, Sixth and that sort of stuff. So he was waiting in the wings, and he was perfect to go in, and he was a much more established guitarist than I was. And him and Adrian, it was like almost a dream come true, because where me and Adrian had a great rapport in the way we played music, mine was always the simplistic stuff, and he would come in after, or he would come in with a riff. I would take on what he had just done, and he'd establish it even more. He'd just turn it into something amazing, and it was just nice to see that, although I had left my group of friends, and they weren't left with no one, and they decided that after I left, the sound took on a much more heavy role. They ditched the Slot name because it was associated with the happy, punky, poppy stuff that we used to play, and they became 30 Foot 4, and they did some amazing stuff. I mean, they started getting into some real offbeat drum beats, offbeat guitar riffs, and the harmonies between the two guitarists were incredible, and the pummeling bass lines, and it was awesome. It's not, like I said, it wasn't my style of music, which is why I left the band. But to see them rise to that next platform, it was awe-inspiring. So it just goes to show that we all have that talent inside us, and we can adapt ourselves. I'm a big fan of the American series of The Office, and there's a very poignant line that one of the characters, Jim, says, which is, would you rather be halfway up a ladder you don't want to, halfway up the ladder of a career you don't want, or at the bottom of a ladder of the career you do want? And that resonated within me quite a bit. And I was like, well, yeah, if I worked at radio station, even as the coffee boy, or getting records or CDs or MP3s ready for the next show, that would be amazing. Unfortunately, because of the amount of money I earn doing the job I have, we've become grown accustomed to that sort of lifestyle. And I'm not saying you were flush or anything, far from it, but everyone lives to their means, don't they? So for me to do that would mean potentially losing my house, and my girls would be homeless, and that's so you got to weigh up what your dreams are and when you do them. But there's always avenues, and I am lucky enough to have such a supportive wife and family that I've applied and been successful in joining a volunteer radio group for the Hospital Radio Plymouth team. They've accepted me as a production assistant to begin with the option after 3 months of maybe giving me my own show or two. And in that vein, I've done some research. I've been doing a lot of things of what people in the hospital would want, and demographics and all that sort of thing. And I'm quite happy with the shows I have planned. I mean, when I started all these podcasts, it was more of a trying to find my way in the world with regard to the show I was going to do for Hospital Radio Plymouth. I had my pod quiz and my Guilty Pleasure playlist. And they are, if I do get my own show on Hospital Radio, then those two are going to be two of my long-standing features. But for this podcast, I kept thinking to myself, I need to do something real. And then I got back to thinking about how difficult it was for a local band to try and establish ourselves. I mean, I think our crowning moment came when we supported INME. And a lot of you probably haven't heard of INME, but I remember growing up and listening to INME on MTV2, which is always the rock thing. Zane Lowe used to present the show on there. And they had this album, Overgrown Eden. And it was amazing. So they came down and they played a club called C103, which used to be JFK's on Union Street in Plymouth. And we knew a guy who was friends with Ross, and he said, I can get you the support slot. And we were like, oh, amazing, yeah, brilliant, do that. And we thought it was all a bit of bull, but he came through, and we supported INME, and I think it was our biggest audience. I think at its peak we had about, I think they allowed for like 900 people in there. And this is the first time we're playing to 900 people, and honestly, it was an amazing experience. We were first band on, and I just remember stepping out onto that stage in the dark before everything like lights up and you're performing. And I remember putting it was very silent. It was like you had that background chatting as they're all talking, and I remember putting my guitar on and just turning the volume up, and that sound, and it was just amazing. Then we started the gig, and you could tell it wasn't what people were expecting, because we were a 5-piece pop punk band playing with this like progressive rock group. And within like, I think it was halfway through one of our first songs, people started getting into it, and you had people crowd surfing, and then some guys were like getting really into it, and then in between songs we would have the banter, and that's and we would. I remember picking out people in the crowd. Guy was wearing at that time a Happy Tree Friends t-shirt. I loved Happy Tree Friends at that point, which was amazing, and we just struck up this rapport, and the whole crowd just really got into it, and it was amazing. And we finished the gig, and and Tinhead did his twice, and we went off stage. And to be professional that day, I took 2 guitars. So I went off stage with one of my guitars and my amp, but I left one on there. So after everyone had left the stage and we were taking all our gear off, I went back on the stage in the dark, and I always remember I picked up my Fender Strat, held it up in the air as to say, thank you very much, good night. And everyone cheered, and it was just amazing. I've never felt such pride like it, and we were really tight within me. It was really good. So I know from my personal experiences what these things mean to people. And this is why I want to help you. This is why I want you all to get in touch with me. And this is, I've been talking for a while now, but I should have been mentioning this all along. I've got a new website coming. It's The Stuart Reid Show. I've also got my Facebook page, The Stuart Reid Show. There's Twitter. On Twitter I am Reid Daddy Life, but just look for The Stuart Reid Show and I'm sure it'll come up. Instagram, I'm on there too. I am The Stuart Reid Show. And I think I'm still Reid Daddy Life on Tumblr, but get in touch any way you can. But if you want to send me any demos or CDs, or if you want to advertise your store, whatever you've got, whether you're making jewelry or a photographer, or grooming cats, whatever your dream is, get in touch via my new email address. Sorry, my cat was just gnawing at my toes. My new email address. Write this down: The Stuart Reid Show @hotmail.com. Stuart Reid is spelled Stewart, and Reid is REED. So, Stuart Reid, the Stuart Reid Show at hotmail.com. Send me your demos, send me anything, and I will be playing songs on here as soon as possible. This is just a little advert. I've been talking for about half an hour or more. Just get in touch, alright? I'll leave it there, but I want you to think about how it makes you feel to have that recognition for something that you've created. Okay, I know how that feels. This is why I'm doing this. And all you have to do then is spread the word about this show. You'll be featured on it. Other people from other genres or other backgrounds will be featured on it too. And it could open up a whole world of possibilities for everyone. It just needs your support as well. So share and share alike. You know, this is a two-way thing. You help me, I help you, and vice versa. This show will, if we do it right, and I know we can, because there's some amazing talent out there that's been untapped, we can create something special. I'm Stuart Reid. This is the Stuart Reid Show, and I'm here to help you, and you know, in turn, you can help me. So thank you very much for everything. I'm talking for 46 minutes. I don't think I talk 46 minutes in a day normally. But anyway, the Stuart Reid Show, coming next year, and there is something special in the works as well. I'm not going to give any details away now, but as soon as I get enough bands or enough artists come in, I'll give you all an update. But it will be pretty special. So listen in, and like I said, share this, and if you know people in bands, or know singers, or people who even like go out and play clubs and pubs for, you know, doing cover songs and that, get them in touch. I'm sure, you know, as an artist, they've got original material or anything. It's all about exposure at the end of the day. And if this can help anyone get a gig, or be included in some sort of festival, or sell a painting, sell a photograph, or get you to be a photographer for a wedding, or something special like that, get in touch. This is what it's all about. In that vein, I'm going to say goodbye properly now. This is Stuart Reid for the Stuart Reid Show. Let's get you what you need. Alright, I'm going to promote you, and in turn promote the show. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I know I've rambled on for like nearly 50 minutes, but I'm sure if this takes off, it'll be 50 minutes well worthwhile. Thank you very much, and goodbye.